Hello and welcome to lesson number 3 of our interior modeling tutorials. In the last lesson we created a wardrobe, and in this lesson we'll be focusing on the bed. So we want to make something similar to this. So go over to the create panel and select the box. Just click and drag something similar to this size here. So using your front and left viewport, try and make it as thin as possible. So I'm going to bring it quite high so that we can work from the bottom part of it. Go over to the modifier panel and apply the edit poly modifier and select the polygon. Okay, we're going to use the bevel tool. So just click and drag that up to about here. Bring that back up a little bit. And now select the extrude. Bring that down. Oops. Okay, still on bevel. It's okay, so just click and drag. And now we are going to use this one more time. So spread it out like so. Bring that down slightly. And then extrude this. Maybe a little bit more. And I think we've got the base of our bed. Just drag that down, so bring that back into our room. Use your front and left viewport to see what you're doing. And there we go. If it's too big, don't worry, we can easily modify this. Just get your scale and uniform tool and flatten it slightly, like so. I think that's okay. Still a little bit too high, I reckon. So flatten that out a little bit more. And that's alright. So let's create the back of our bed, the headboard. Go over to select another box. Just click and drag from here. So I think it's just zoom a bit. Whoops. And then leave it around there. We can always increase the height of this from over here. I think that's alright. The bed in general is quite big. We'll probably make it smaller in a second. And the room's supposed to be slightly higher. So we're gonna work on all those bits afterwards. So we've got our bed. Now we're gonna make the mattress and the blanket around it. Go over to the Create tab, and this time we're going to be using the extended primitive. Select chamfer box. Using the front and left viewport, try and create it around. Try and make it as thin as possible once more, but we can modify this afterwards. And then once you click and drag your box, you can now define the fillet size. This allows your edges to become slightly curved. So when you're done, just bring it up here. Let's zoom in and see. That's looking okay. We might make it slightly smaller, so go to the parameters, bring the width in a little bit, and the length. Increase that slightly again, actually. I think we went a bit too far. So there you go. Now what we want to do is create the blanket to go over. So we'll start off with the stripy blanket. Go over to the Create tab again, Standard Primitives, and select the plane. So now we're going to create the blanket. Go over and select the plane on your Create panel. Just click and drag to cover the whole bed area and the bed support. Let's bring that up around here. Go over to the parameter section and increase the length segments to 40 and 40 for the width segments. Drop down the modifier list and select the cloth. Go over to Object Properties. Select the plane itself and use the cotton preset and then add objects. Now we are going to add the collision objects. Just need to see what we have there. So that's one. And then we've got this box here. Add those two. Now straight away select the cloth and collision object here. Say OK. And then go over to, let's maximize that viewport. Just click on Simulate Local and let's see how that looks like. Looks like it's working fine. Okay, I'm gonna stop it there. We don't want it to mess up on the last part. So I think that's pretty good on our first attempt. But you can modify this if you want to. I'm quite happy with mine as it is. So now what we are going to do is try and add a little bit of detail to it. With the cloth still selected, go over and select the Edit Poly modifier. Select the edge. Click on one of these, on one of those, and do the same for here. Now go over and select ring. Oh, sorry. Just undo that. Go over and select loop. That allows us to select everything within that same line. So just untick this and that. Do the same for this here. Just scroll down and say select the chamfer. Actually just select the extrude. And you're gonna play around with this a little bit. So we've given it a little bit of detail down here. Do that one more time and say OK. Now let's deselect everything, then go over to the modifier panel again, and we're going to apply the shell modifier just to give it a little bit of body. Decrease that to 0, that to 0 as well. And then maybe just increase it a little bit. Oops. And I think that's okay. Now go over to the modifier panel and select the shell modifier. That allows us to give it a little bit of thickness. Maybe something around that size. Now let's apply the smooth modifier. So go over to your modifier panel and get the mesh smooth modifier. And you notice it's a little bit more curvier and a bit soft to the eye in comparison to before. So if I switch that off, you notice we've got some sharp edges here. As soon as I switch the modifier on, it's much smoother. So you can increase the iterations to maybe 2. Don't go too far because your model will get very heavy. And there we go. We've got our first blanket made, which is this one here. And now for the second part, we want to create this red blanket here. So just go over to the left viewport and maximize that. Now we can't see things clearly, but we're trying to keep everything within the scene so you can see what we're doing. Go over to the create panel again, select the shapes, and this time get the line tool. Now we want to make something a bit weird. Like so. Now I don't know how this will turn out, but we're gonna see what happens. So maximize this viewport. Go over and extrude. Just bring that over here. And I think use the top viewport to see how wide it is. I think that's alright. Okay, once you've done that, just increase the segments here. Increase these to about 60 to 70. So I'm quite happy with that. And then apply the edit poly modifier. Now select the edge. Go over to this view. So now we want to try and add some segments to it. Right click, say connect, and increase to about 18. We're going to do the same for this part here. In fact, let me just select most of them. Our model is getting quite heavy because of all these segments we're adding in. I'm going to reduce that right down. Say OK. Now we're going to do exactly the same thing, and we're going to apply the cloth modifier to our object. Object properties. Add objects. So we're going to add the chamfer box, the plane, and the first box. And we're going to make them collision objects. Now this new shape we've created, we'll just apply the cotton preset. Press OK. And when that's done, scroll down. Hit on the self collision tick box. And then press simulate local. So I'm going to pause this because it might take a while. And then I'll resume the tutorial when this is done. Okay, this is it done now. It's taken more. I think it took me around 15 minutes to get to this. Just hit F4 so we can see what we have here. And that looks alright. I'm just going to apply the shell modifier so that we give it a little bit of thickness. And as soon as you do that, everything seems okay. Almost. So just play around with the amount until it looks right. But when you come to render this, it should look okay. But as for now, you can see it feels almost fabric-like, or it looks almost fabric-like. So I'm going to apply the mesh smooth modifier to that. And now it's even better. So yeah, as for this tutorial, I'm going to end it there. On the next lesson, we'll try and create the other objects. So for now, we've created all these. We need to work on the pillows, that section there, some of these here, and we've got a few more lessons left. But thank you for tuning in today, and I'll see you on the next lesson.